Excuse me. Hello there. Welcome back to the Smallville Retrospective. I'm Scotty. You're not. We're rounding it out. This is episode 19. Mercy. Mercy. Yes, mercy. In this episode, better. Much better. It's still filler, but it's directed by James Marshall, who has returned to us from earlier on this season. Directed Splinter. There it is. And he's back doing this one. And in this episode, Lionel Luthor gets kidnapped and has to play a game. Yeah, it's basically Saw with Lionel Luthor. That's all it is. And you know that it had to be ripping off Saw because this came out, it's now 2006, almost 2 years after that movie came out. So you knew that they were ripping it off. Although this one makes more sense than Flatliners, which they ripped off earlier. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and put this out there now. The B-plot concerns Lex and Lana talking about their smooch. Who cares? Let's move on from that. It doesn't really matter. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're out to talk about what is a glorified Saw movie within Smallville. Oh yes, we start with Lionel in his limousine. And he's on the phone talking with someone, and he hangs up only for it to stop on the tracks. And then he gets a message from somebody with a carpet voice who wants to play a game. And he has to play a game of Hangman. And he's like putting out letters. And he's like, it's something that you used to tell me all the time. And he's, oh, I know now. N-M-R-C-Y. That the answer is no mercy. And he's able to escape just as the train hits the limousine, and it explodes because this is a TV show. Yeah. After the opening credits, though, Lionel immediately thinks it was Lex who was behind it. Yeah, like I said, the side plot with this has to do with Lex and Lana and their smooch, and he's teaching her how to play chess? I don't know. But Lionel gets there and he's like, well, no mercy. You did this to me. And like every time something happens to either one of them, they basically point their finger at each other. It's getting a little bit overdone, but this felt more like a traditional episode than the last few, I think. Because James Marshall directed this, and it's not bad. Soon enough, though, Lionel is kidnapped again and put through another test. See? So I call this. Now, again, you can say, well, you've seen this before. Yeah, but it's been years since I've watched these. So it's essentially getting new eyes on this for me. So maybe I'm just remembering. I don't know. But there's one point that Lionel has this guy sweep his entire office for bugs. And the guy goes, no, there's nothing here. No bugs in here. He goes, okay, you can go now. And I'm just like, something's not right about him. And then he immediately gets, the bad guy immediately breaks in, or like hacks in, starts talking to him. And I went, all right, it's that guy then. It's the only one that makes sense, because he swept through and said there are no bugs. Only immediately for a bug to be found present, right? And later we do find out that there was a bug there. Yeah. I did like that Clark and Lex are sort of working together here. Hey, remind you of back in the day? By this point, Clark has told, I think it was at the end of the last episode actually. Or was it this episode? I don't remember. He has told It was this episode. he's told Martha, I keep forgetting the name, I don't know why, about that Lionel knows his secret. And she is now told Clark about how someone tried to blackmail her and Lionel has dealt with it. And they think somehow that leads them to believe he was behind it. Which is true, or at least what Wikipedia wants you to believe. Like I said, I don't know. And again, they think he did, so he must have. Not always jump to those conclusions, but you know. So, Lionel wakes up in a cage. And he's told that he has this is basically an actual saw trap. So he has to lift. It's one of those things, you know, like where you have the beam, pole, whatever, and you got 2 buckets on each end. He's got to lift, you got to fill up the buckets on each side, and he's got to lift it up. He's got to put it on the hook. Simple, right? Well, there's also flames coming up, and the liquid inside there is very flammable. As we find out that, well, Lionel's limousine driver was not so lucky. No, he burnt to a crisp. I laughed a little bit when Lionel covers him up with his jacket. I'm like, what's that gonna do? You don't have to see the dead corpse? Or it's to cover up continuity so they can kind of shoot around it, I guess. I don't know what that does, but yeah, he covers it up. He doesn't want to look at it. He's able to do this, and he escapes just before the flames get really high and to engulf him. He gets through, only to find out now with the next game he has to not play alone. Well, that's what he says. You're going to have a partner. But then it's just Martha is stuck in this glass box. Water filling it up. And Lionel has to rearrange this word puzzle. Right. And it leads to... And it unscrambles... It's an anagram or whatever it is. It unscrambles to failed takeover. Which has to do with this Apex takeover. He was trying to do it so he can undermine Lex and get Luthor back, but it didn't work. And so this guy is... Whoever doing this is connected to that. Yeah. So like I said, now that it's revealed that Martha has been kidnapped, so now Clark and Lex and Chloe are working together. They go to Lionel's office, and Clark so happens to... He uses X-ray vision to find where the bug is, but then he points out, is this supposed to be chipped? And Lex is like, my father would never allow this. Good eyes. How would Clark know that? He breaks it inside the little bug thing that Chloe's able to try to trace, but it leads them to a dead end because the guy was able to read. It was a fake out, which is one of the twists from Saw. So I feel like they copied that, you know. So eventually, Lionel figures out it's failed takeover, and Martha. The whole thing cracks and Martha spills out. Oh, she's not cut. I don't know. But he's like, okay, go up the stairs and it's on your way out. Eventually, oh, what if we just stay here? You can, but then the floor is going to be electrified. So, yeah, it reminds me of Freddy's Dad. It's less comedic, but Freddy's Dad, this one is less comedic. Freddy's Dad is not. Where it's like, no, I'm not moving from this bed. You can't make me. And it sets on fire. He gets out. Yeah. So yeah. So now they're in an elevator that's now going up. And so the game is that Lionel has to either kill her, Martha, or Martha has to shoot him. Lionel comes to the conclusion that he has to shoot himself, but it turns out there's no bullets in it because the guy was never going to let them live anyway. So it starts to fall, and Clark super speeds in. I don't get this part because he super speeds in, he puts it down, and Lionel acts like this is a big surprise to him. He already knows that Clark knows about. He already knows that Clark knows that he knows about this secret because emissary of Jor-El, right? I'm assuming he would think Clark would listen. I don't know. Maybe he was acting. I don't know. But, yeah, so when eventually Lionel goes back and is looking around, Lex meets him there, and he's like, oh, that guy, they found him at a bar, toasting your death. Apparently the guy didn't care if he got caught as long as he knew you were going to die, and he lost it when he found out you survived. And he's like, oh no, he survived. He's like, how did that happen, Dad? Huh? During when he's on video camera, apparently he said that Clark was remarkable, and he tries to turn around like, oh, I just meant that he was raised right, or something like that. I don't know. He's like, Clark was, one minute he's right next to me, and the next thing I know, he's all the way across town. Yeah, Lex is pretty much caught on. I guess I never realized how early on he caught on to this. And Clark is getting just reckless with his powers at this point. The writing is getting less tight with his powers because they're just starting to throw it away willy-nilly because they need people to start suspecting stuff, which, early on in the series was handled so nice and neat with his powers. People not questioning anything because he was able to just do that. But now it's getting messy and people are starting to question everything because the writers needed to. It's fine, really. For this episode, it works. But Clark and Lionel have a confrontation where Clark basically says, I don't trust you. How long have you had this? Since last year, basically. I was holding the stones, and then I had all this knowledge put into me, and I've known this whole time. Basically. And he's like, you haven't done anything? No, if I was to interfere, it would ruin your destiny. And just looked at him. Your destiny's too big for me to interfere. And he's like, okay, why'd you save my mother? Well, I figured that she was the one worth saving, or something like that. And he's like, or you knew that there was no bullets in the gun. No, because his look on his face when it doesn't go off is that of surprise. Unless he's acting for Martha, But I forgot to mention, it is revealed that it is that guy who did the sweeping. So I was like, ha! Fucking called it. And again, it could just be a memory. But, yeah. Basically, he's like, you stay away from my mother. Stay away from me. I don't trust you. And the episode ends. This moved briskly. This was not like the previous ones where it felt like it took forever to get done. This was brisk. And nothing against Tom Welling. It was his first directing job. And the scripts also have to do with it. This is a very tight script. It knew what it was doing. And the director knew what he was doing. Like I said, the last big director was Greg Beeman. I don't remember who directed Vengeance, but that wasn't bad. That was the last really decent one. And then there was just filler after filler after filler because we got 22 episodes. And now we're starting to ramp things up just a little bit. We sprinkled little things in there, starting to ramp it up. This is also a filler, but I feel like it works with what it was trying to do, which is ripping off Saw, which I'm a big fan of those movies, so this works. And at this point, they'd only released 2 Saw movies. So they're pulling from the first 2 Saw movies, which is why it's so good, because they're pulling from 2 of the best. And not the crap from later. So it works. So, what are your thoughts on this episode? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Scott, and I'll see you in the next one.